Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome back to a Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, September 29th, 2020. I'm Gavin Pickin, and thanks again, Brad, for coming to join me.
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, let's get into this right away with our sponsors. Let's thank Ortus Solutions.
Do this.
So, Ortus Solutions has been busy, and we actually now have an extra workshop scheduled. So now there are 3 virtual workshops coming up in October and November. So we'll tell you more about that.
Veritable 3 workshops, man.
Yeah, so we'll tell you about that third one soon. And obviously, CFCasts is our subscription content, so you can check that out, where you get free and paid content every week. And Ortus has recently announced a couple more support packages and plans. So now, if you want, the ultimate support package is our Space Ninja subscription. So we can help you with all the different box products you're using. And that's a pretty inclusive package there. And we also have a modernization service package, so if you guys are looking at doing some modernization, maybe that package will work for you. So if you go to ortussolutions.com/services, you can find out all about the different services we offer. Yep, and our Patreon supporters, of course, we always have to thank them. They're spending their hard-earned money to support this podcast. And we're right at that 60% mark for being supported by Patreon. So you Patreon supporters are putting more money into this podcast than Ortus Solutions, and we thank you. So we'll tell you a little more about them at the end. So let's get into the news.
And events.
Oh, and events, yeah. So the news flash, our third workshop. Which one is it, Brad?
I don't know. I just minimized the show notes. I wasn't even aware of it. Quick online workshop scheduled November 5th and 6th. That means it's not going to be like a long workshop. It's just a quick workshop.
It's a quick 2-day workshop. So
what is quick again?
Quick is our special ColdFusion based ORM.
Special.
Yep.
Eric Special.
Eric Peterson has built that from scratch in ColdFusion because we were sick of some of the Hibernate fun. So
fun.
Yeah,
that's the way to put it.
I was trying to be nice. So yep. So with that, the quick workshop, it's not quite on the website right now. By the time you guys are listening, if you're listening after the fact on our podcast, you'll be able to probably go online to the Ortus Solutions site and register. That information's been added today, so you'll see that very soon. And I know a lot of people have been asking for it. John Farrar. John, it's finally here. The quick workshop you've been waiting for is here, so you better be the first to sign up.
There you go.
Yeah.
And of course, Quick is built on top of QB, so if any of you guys out there are already familiar with Query Builder, maybe you're using that in some of your projects. Quick is just kind of another step that builds on top of that, so already be familiar.
Yeah, the ORM piece of it, it's not that hard to actually update. Not that hard to add to your CFC if you're using a bean or a model for your objects. It's not much different really. So add a couple little annotations in there, and Quick can do a lot of the hard work for you, save you a lot of time and effort. So definitely recommend Quick. We're using it a lot these days, and we really love it. So definitely a step up. So check that out.
Cool. Do you know what the prerequisites are for that course?
I don't. I think they're pretty much. I think they're pretty wide open, to be honest, but I'm not sure. I know Eric's been working hard on this workshop. Some of the blog stuff that he's been doing on CFCasts for the content there is based on what you'll be doing in the workshop. So if you guys are CFCast subscribers, you're probably already getting a taste of what you might be working on in the workshop. So check that out as well. But we will know next week. We will tell you for sure. But as of right now, you might have to wait a day or two for it to get up on the Ortus site. So, okay. So next up, we have a Seattle CFUG meeting coming up here. It's not too often we get these much anymore, but it's good to see them out and about. So, Wednesday, October the 14th, online via Zoom. Leon O'Daniel is going to be talking about integrating your ColdFusion app with the Thinkific platform. So I'm actually pretty interested in this one because I've done a lot of work with Thinkific. I've got a pretty elaborate system set up for one of our clients, and we use the Thinkific API exclusively, and we actually do a lot of the work for registration and everything. It's pretty interesting. I really like working with their API, and this is basically what this talk is about. So if you're looking for a learning platform, this might be a good talk. Or if you want to just learn how to interact with third-party APIs, this is probably a good talk for you too. So I'm actually curious.
I'm not even familiar with this platform, the Thinkific platform.
Yeah, so it's similar to Teachable and Codier and all those other ones. There's a lot of good features in it. I like the API access.
Yeah, everything you need to run your education business under one roof.
Yep. And so one of the things that I did for my customer was they actually have contracts with companies, and then they basically, control the content. They deliver the content to lots of organizations. But with Thinkific, normally, it's I'm an individual, I'll go sign up for this course setup. But what we did is we actually gave the companies that they work with this other company the ability to manage their employees. So they can actually add their employees to trainings, and we basically put a middle layer in there so they can administer things. So, it was a pretty interesting project.
Like a learning management system?
Similar, but this is more of a consumer-facing one. So it's like Udemy or stuff like that if you're going to build your own version. And they do have some sharing where you can sell some stuff across, but basically they give you your own little site, and it's sort of independent. Whereas if you're me, you're competing with all the hordes of people doing their training. So
the hordes.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool. That should be a fun thing. Just session, webinar. What do you call this thing?
Yeah.
User group meeting.
Yep.
Should be a fun example of integrations.
Yeah, and it's a really nice API. Like I said, it's working really well, and they have a few different platform, packages and everything. But yeah, the API they had and the control they had via the API was why we ended up going with Thinkific. So much more control, and yeah, you can do a lot with it. So, like I said, I'll be definitely tuning into this one to see what they've done, and it's kind of interesting. So, good to see some user groups out there, presenting again. So go check that out. It's up on meetup.com under the Seattle-ColdFusion- user group. We'll have that link here in the show notes. So, okay. So last week we also had an online meetup, Charlie's Online CF Meetup, and that was with Dan Skaggs. And that was one we talked about last week, about using Docker for local development.
Yep.
So... yeah, it looks
Isolation is a good thing was the name of it for your local dev environments.
Yeah, and so it shows you how to quickly set up your development environment and allow you to archive them later if you're working on different projects. So a pretty neat little one. I have to finish watching the recording. I only saw a little bit of that, so can't give you a full review on it. But in case you missed it, it's available. It's up on YouTube. Charlie's got a playlist with over 270 videos now in there for that Online CF Meetup, going back a long time, but a lot of great content there. So I know they've got a couple more meetups scheduled coming up soon. They'll be releasing the information very soon there. My presentation got pushed back a couple of weeks due to just overloaded, so I'll be speaking in a couple of weeks, but I think next week they have a different one. So, but yeah, definitely check that one out from Dan Skaggs. Really good one, especially if you're trying to get a more streamlined local development process set up. So also, in case they missed it, I had a webinar last week as well on Modern ColdFusion, no more copy paste. And so I did that last Friday on September 25th, and the video is now up on CFCasts.com. It's free for the first month, so if you want to check it out, if you missed it, you can go check that out on CFCast for free. And we had a pretty good session. We had quite a few people show up. I think it was one of the most attended ones so far. So I don't know if that just means we're building up steam, or maybe that topic really hit home and we got more people there.
Maybe it's just a good day of the week.
Friday. We always do Fridays. But yeah.
So. I wasn't even able to make it. I don't know what I was doing, but I had a bunch of stuff on my schedule that day. But that's just good to hear it went well.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting for me too, because a lot of the examples I used in there, I'd used before at different times, and a few things I'm like, I'm not even sure if this still works this way. So it was interesting to dive into it, and we tried a few different things. And one of the interesting things was I went all the way to the point where we do ForgeBox packages, and I can compared the time and the cost essentially of using a ForgeBox package versus pointing at the GitHub repo. And so I looked at the different sizes for something like ColdBox, and obviously if you're using ForgeBox and you're using Semver ranges and everything else, you have more control, but also having that artifacts cache where we don't have to go and re-download it every single time would add up pretty quickly. So had a little information in there as well. But we talked about using CF include, CF module, custom tags, all the way through. So it was pretty interesting. I try to give the pros and cons of each approach and why you might like something and why you might not. And
so where do people go if they miss that and they want to listen to it?
They go to the CFCasts.com under the webinar series. We have a little series for our Ortus webinars. And
that's free content, right?
Free content for the first month.
Oh, just for the first month?
Yep. So
you have exactly 30 days to watch this before you can never see it again unless you have a subscription to CFCast. Is that how this works?
That's the way it works. Yep.
Ooh, the countdown is on, people.
Yep. Put a little urgency in there and we'll see what happens. So that's what the marketing people have decided. So there it is. So, yeah.
Watch it while you can.
Yep.
All right. Sweet. So also I hear that Content Box 5 beta is in the development branch. So and by we I mean Luis. It's like a royal we that really just means Luis has been cooking on Content Box, especially with the recent news of Mura changing its licensing. So we've had a lot of interest in Content Box, and it's lit a fire into Luis, and he's worked on multi-tenant feature, which has been one of the most requested features that we've never actually gotten into it. So basically one Content Box installation could have multiple different sites without having to have, an installation for every client, or every tenant rather. I think there's a bunch of updates to the admin screens, and I think it's using CF migrations now to update the database, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we have to do some major database updates because of the way all the keys need to change when the multi-tenant.
Oh yeah,
so
probably touched almost every table, I'm guessing, to have a tenant ID or something like that in there.
Pretty much, yep. And so now when you set up your site, you'll get basically 2 sites in there, so you can see how that works with a multi-tenant. And Luis is he's kind of surprised. He actually likes it a lot for doing dev, staging, production, because now he can basically do in the same code base, have the new content, and then you just basically clone the content over from one site to the other using the import export or whatnot. And now all of a sudden you've got your staging content in production. So
that's a really good point, being able to have 2 different environments worth of content all inside of an installation.
Yeah, because we've obviously been using Docker lately, so for us, multi-tenant didn't make a lot of sense. But now, thinking about it this way, it's basically your tier of information. Then it made it, a little different. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. He's been, exploring as he's been developing and everything, and so he's like, well, maybe we should use this. Save it for content migration, sort of a QA mode, and then you can just sort of deploy your content as needed. So
yeah. So how do people test this? Where do they need to go?
Well, it's in the development branch, so @BE should bring you down the latest version, the bleeding edge.
And which one of the 57 slugs on ForgeBox is that?
That's a good question, because that's one thing with Content Box. We had to give you multiple slugs, because if you wanted to add Content Box just as a module inside of your existing ColdBox site, you could do that. If you wanted to use the site, you basically the whole site, which has ColdBox and Content Box inside of it, you would use the Content Box site. And if you just wanted the installer, there was a Content Box -installer. So I believe Content Box site is the one you'd want to use, because that gives you the ColdBox site with Content Box in it all ready to go.
All right. So if you just want to create an empty folder, chuck in Content Box 5, spin it up, play with it, you want to install Content Box site.
I believe @BE. Yep. And that should be there. So we're ready to start testing out the new features. And then obviously we're still working on it. Still got some extra things we're doing, but a lot of the big pieces are done there. So we're excited.
According to Luis in Slack today, it's cooked. Content Box V5 is cooked. It's done. Finalized. Put it in production.
Well, we might be pretty soon. We'll see.
We need that feedback. All right.
Got to test it. Throw people under the bus. throw them in the deep end and see what happens. So.
All right. So if they do find issues, they want to go put that in Jira or report it via Slack.
I think
how can people get back with us?
Yep, Jira is good, but also Slack, which any way possible. Feedback is feedback. We'll take it however you give it. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Next up, let's talk about some of the CFCasts content updates. So again, every week we try and give you some new stuff, and we actually had a pre-announcement on the Build a Blog with Quick a couple weeks back. That was actually incorrect. So the series was released, but none of the videos were released yet. So that was a mishap there. So Build a Blog with Quick. We got the introduction.
Hashtag fake news.
Yep. So we got the introduction, which is free content, so you can see a bit about that. And then we have the getting started and displaying a list of posts in that series, which are under the subscription. And then, as we mentioned, the webinar, my Modern ColdFusion, no more copy and paste. That's under the webinar series. So that's in there as free content right now. So lots of good content. I think we got some more CF config coming here soon and some more VS Code. So lots of content. There's lots of series getting added to almost every week.
So John Farrar just asked in the chat, what does he do if he finds an issue with the CFCast course? What kind of issue do you mean on that, John?
Yeah, because there's a support page there, has a contact email. You can set that up.
Yeah, I'm guessing the short answer is probably going to be use that support page to contact us, but probably depends on if your issue is just using the site or if your issue is maybe information that you think is incorrect in the course or something. But I would say, yeah, the most generic answer is probably fill out that support form so we can help you out with it.
Yeah, and if you know the producer of the content, if it's Eric's video, for example, I'm sure he's pretty noticeable. He gets back to people pretty quickly on the Slack channels. So.
Okay. Yeah. So John says you're trying to get a data course. I mean, if you were to go into the Box Team Slack in the Quick channel and just ask, you could probably get help from people in the community and or Eric there. So.
Yeah, it should be pretty quick. Pun intended. Okay, so let's get into our conferences. So, Into the Box workshops. As we mentioned, we have 3 now scheduled and planned. We have the ColdBox Zero to Hero, led by me, October 8th and 9th. We have the ColdBox 6. It's got updated to ColdBox 6 now. So, ColdBox 6, Hero to Superhero,
Nice.
led by Louis Mahano on the 22nd to 23rd. And then on November 5th and 6th, we have that Quick workshop led by Eric Peterson. So
at what point do these workshops stop being into the box workshops and just start becoming random workshops that Ortus has decided to do?
Well, that's what I was actually wondering myself earlier.
We've sort of clearly done all the workshops at this point that I think we advertised for Into the Box, and now we're just like,
the last one.
Okay, now we're just kind of like rescheduling stuff because, hey, people want it. So is it really an Into the Box workshop, or is it just, hey, Ortus workshop?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We can maybe change the thing to conferences and workshops.
Five years from now, we're like, the 51st Into the Box 2020 workshop.
Might be 2021 by then. But yeah.
No, that's the joke. That's the joke, is we'd still be calling it the Into the Box 2020 workshops.
Yes, John, there's a Quick workshop. You must have been late to the
Oh, John, you missed it. Oh, you missed it, man. We were talking about talking about your long-awaited workshop.
Yep, it's finally here. So if you're not the first person to sign up, we're going to be sad and disappointed, John. It's November 5th and 6th.
If you're not the first person to sign up, we're actually going to penalize you and charge you extra when you do sign up. So just be aware of that. It'll be the John Farrar upsell because you didn't sign up fast enough.
Yep, and that's going to be posted on the Ortus website in a couple of days. John, they're working on the content right now. They're adding to Eventbrite, getting the tickets set up, etc. So either today or tomorrow, you'll be able to sign up for that Quick workshop on ortussolutions.com.
Marketing team is processing it as we speak. Operators are standing by.
Yep, and if you want the podcast 10 code, we should give you 10% off of all of our workshops there too.
There you go.
Okay, so tomorrow we have a conference, jconf.dev. I didn't say jsconf this time. Good job. Yeah. But one of the cool things about that we mentioned a long time ago is if you signed up for that conference, they'd actually send you swag. And the cool thing about it is I did sign up for that, and I got some swag. So here's a few items that
Show
were.
it to us. Picker, it didn't happen.
So I got a little Sentry stress hot dog. I got some
Oh, nice.
freaking USA socks. My wife loves rainbows, and she's got those already. We got one of the webcam hiders for all those Zoom meetings that people.
What is freaking USA? Is that an actual company name?
Yeah, I guess it was made in the freaking USA. That's. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's actually
Made
Freaker.
in the freaking USA. Oh, yeah.
But it's called Freaker USA, so I was confused. But they look like pretty cool socks. So
That's pretty funny.
Wife's happy about that. So we got the Couchbase, webinar cover. We got a little pin, so it's a Mux pin, just API video stuff. Pretty interesting, but it's a actual little pin. It was kind of cool. I got some headphones too, so that was nice. Always need more headphones, the way the kids go through them.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And then I've got a little bouncy ball stress ball, and it's elastic, which is pretty funny. And then a few extra stickers and a little jconf pin as well. Thought it was pretty neat. Nice jconf t-shirt. And then Brad's favorite, I'm sure, because we love JFrog. The Iron Frog. They always have some pretty cool content, pretty cool t-shirts and stuff. So we always like those, right? So
yeah, JFrog has the coolest conference t-shirts.
So yeah, I was pretty happy with that. I was thinking, a little teeny envelope or something, but nope, came in a box, a bunch of stuff. So pretty good for an online conference, I thought. So anyway, so that conference itself is tomorrow. jconf.dev. You can sign up. It's free. It's going to be online, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central tomorrow. A lot of great content. We mentioned a lot of Java presenters there, including Venkat, which our little favorite Venkat. So he'll be presenting too. Cool. Next, we also have Adobe CF Summit 2020 coming up soon. So November 17th to 19th is online and free. You can sign up at cfsummit.adobeevents.com. And they're listing speakers now. There's 12 speakers listed. So, and we have another conference coming up here. I did not know, but Tomcat Conference, so part of ApacheCon, is running today and the next 2 days from 11 to 4 Central Time, entirely online and free. And that is at ApacheCon. Let's see if I can get the link here. Charlie's posting in the notes here, so we appreciate that, Charlie. Cool. I'm going to add that to the show notes right now. Oh,
I'm already adding the show notes. I'm ahead of you.
So, very cool. So, yeah, so next couple of days, if you guys are interested, TomcatCom. So, obviously, Tomcat runs underneath Lucy and Adobe, and that's a big part of ColdFusion these days. So, if you want to learn a little bit more about it, definitely check that one out. So,
I somehow hadn't heard anything about this. That's kind of cool.
There are so many conferences around right now, it's kind of crazy. So,
that's true.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with them all. So, but that one's there. So, as we mentioned, the Adobe conference in November. Sign up online for free. And then they don't have any workshops this year that they've announced, but they are doing the Online ColdFusion Certification. The introductory offer for that is $4.99. You can find out more on their. They have a blog post about it, also a registration link, which we'll share in the show notes. So lots of great video content. Take a multiple choice quiz at the end, and if you pass, you get a cool little badge and a certificate from Adobe, and that badge follows you.
You'll be electrocuted in your chair. So,
so mean.
Charlie just put another note here in the chat. Charlie Earhart that the TomcatCon, which is part of ApacheCon, actually has Egal Sapir speaking in it, and he's one of the core developers of Lucy server. Apparently, he's not speaking on Lucy, but he is speaking at the conference. So that's a pretty cool little note about that.
That's cool. Did he speak last year at that too? Because I remember him having a video where he was talking at a conference.
That sounds familiar, but I can't quite remember for sure. Here we go. So he's speaking on reverse proxying with Nginx.
Oh, okay. Cool,
there
cool. So that sounds like a good session for everybody. A lot of people use Nginx these days. Oh, and Charlie has as well. Charlie spoke at Tomcat Con a couple of years ago as well.
Man, they'll just let anybody in there, won't they?
Not you, Brad. They got standards.
Yeah, I know.
So, next up, we just want to remind you the CF Camp is not happening in 2020. cfcamp.org. You can find out a little bit more about why and what they're planning to do coming up. But essentially, they can't risk a in person, and they don't want to do a bad job. They wanted to do it justice with and so they're just skipping the online this year. And obviously, there's plenty of online conferences, so don't have to worry about that. And another conference as well, ITB LATAM, is in planning, and that should be aimed for early December. So we'll give you more information for that, and that's going to be a Spanish conference. So it should be, I believe, free as well. We'll have to give you a little more information.
Yeah, it's going to be virtual. In fact, Luis has already asked me about maybe doing a session for it. I don't think anything's in stone yet. Of course, I don't speak enough Spanish to present in Spanish, so if I did it, I would present in English and then have slides all with Spanish subtitles, which had me thinking, like, I usually say a heck of a lot more words than what will fit in a slide. So if I do end up doing a session for the ITB LATAM, it'll be interesting to see how well that works out. But I don't know. John Clausen did it last year in person. I think they just had Spanish on the screen, so
yeah,
see how it works.
And that's the thing too, is a lot of the speakers down there did speak English, but they're just more comfortable in Spanish, And
You mean the attendees?
yeah, sorry, but
yeah, I mean, I would guess probably most people who attended knew some English, but obviously, listening to someone babble in a language that's not your first language can be difficult to actually soak in what they're saying for sure. So
yeah,
I think that's cool how they kind of, from my understanding, Luis was saying they even had some kind of like I don't know if interpreter is the right word, but like people helping like kind of translate on the fly in case there's anything that didn't come across. So that's kind of cool. Obviously adds a whole kind of layer of complexity on top of a conference when you're trying to span a couple languages. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, we're obviously dedicated to South America, Spanish speaking, and we're even looking at creating a series of CFCasts content in Spanish. So we're working on that. So we'll be multilingual soon.
Would you re-record the videos, or would you just do like voiceovers just to change?
I think
translate what was being said.
I think we're planning for new videos completely. So
okay.
But
I was thinking, like, if there weren't sound effects in the video and you could just map out what was said and just like lay a different audio track. But I don't know, maybe that wouldn't work out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that they may do that too. Obviously, a lot of people, it's kind of weird when you see code in other languages. A lot of times, some of the things are not, not English, but most of it is. So it'd be kind of strange to be programming in a different language and using all the function names in English and all the non-function, all the variables are not. So
well, that's a good point. If you're showing stuff on your screen, there's browser prompts and things that wouldn't be in the right language. I mean, I run into the same thing when I'm working with our El Salvadorian team. I say, yeah, click the close window button, and I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, it's not what it's called on your screen. I don't know what it says, but that's a good point. So I guess it might make sense to re-record it, not only spoken in that language, but using a browser and a computer that's in that language naturally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some re-recording may make sense, but our goal, I think, is to get the content out there in, original content specifically aimed at Spanish speaking. And so
that's awesome. I mean, because one of Ortus's kind of mission is to be able to, spread CFML love and, in Central America, Latin America and stuff through conferences like Into the Box, and being able to make, content on CFcast available in a native language down there, I think would actually be a really cool idea. Because then we could, they could push that at the conference and people could come and learn about CFML even easier.
Yep, and that's the plan. And, obviously there's price points and everything to be, considerate of. And yeah, just basically just like learning the code. So we may actually have some, simpler ones. We talked about doing introductory type code things. And obviously things like the ColdFusion in 100 minutes book, converting that, translating that. We're all looking at different things like that. Anyway, sorry we got distracted. LATAM America, the ITB LATAM is planning early December, but let's get on to blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So it's been a busy week, but not a lot of content this week. So we got it pretty short and sweet. But the first one up we have is from Rex Chief.
Public beta ColdFusion next project Stratus. I'm waiting for the blog post to load.
There we go.
The ColdFusion portal's not loading for me. Where's the portal?
So basically, it's here. The public beta is out, and they're just reminding you sign up for that. And then these are some of the important things and the amazing highlights, as they put it. The installer size. This is a pretty big one for ColdFusion because for a long time it's been at 1 gig plus, right? Now the installer is only 150 megs, and it's just a zip installer, so you can get started very quickly. And they say the startup time is only 5 seconds now. Is that true, Brad? Is it really only 5 seconds?
I don't know. I haven't timed it. I don't recall it being particularly faster or slower.
Because I know that some of the versions I ran, like in the old days, version 9 would take 180 seconds if you had a lot of sites.
Oh, jeez.
The more sites you had, the slower it got.
But I'd have to do some timings on that. Of course, all that talk of the installer doesn't matter if you are using Command Box to test the 2020 beta. Yep. In fact, you don't technically even need to sign up. You can just use Command Box and start up CF Engine equals Adobe at BE, and you will get the latest public beta. If you really want, you can do 2020 dash whatever the heck. I think it's beta. I forget what I actually have the pre-release identifier in ForageBox. Yeah, you didn't even need to use the installer so long as you are using Command Box to test.
Yep. I think
beta 1. Yeah, it's 2020.0.0-beta.1 is the ForageBox semantic version number for the beta.
Cool. Well, I'm curious how the AWS and Azure services work with their API. But obviously, I want to learn a little more about their package manager, their setup tool, and obviously compare and contrast to what we already built, right? But still, it's kind of nice that they're out there, and they have that working. And then
so to give a quick comparison, just like the WAR file, I'm just looking at my Command Box artifacts folder right now. Adobe ColdFusion 2018 Update 10, the zip file for the CF engine in Command Box, which is basically the WAR, is 328 megs. If I look at the beta 1, the zip file, my artifacts is 121 megs. So that's a huge decrease in size of the core engine, which is pretty nice. But yeah, the package manager stuff you talked about is interesting, and honestly, I need to work on figuring out a little bit some better tooling for that, because the problem you'll run into if you grab Command Box, you say, hey, start up an Adobe ColdFusion 2020 beta server, it'll grab the WAR, it'll deploy it. You do ColdBox create app, right? You dump a ColdBox folder or a ColdBox app in the web root, and you go hit it in the web browser, and it goes and it blows up, and it's like, oh, you're using the CF feeds tag, which is something the core ColdBox framework has in one of the data marshaller or something services, and it won't compile because you don't have the feeds module installed. And so what you have to do is, go dig into the server home. You have to find the little CF PM, which is the ColdFusion package manager, and you have to type, CF PM install feed, or whatever the packages you need, and it'll download those additional OSGI bundles for you, and then the ColdBox site will work. And so with Lucy, Command Box has some plumbing that's kind of built in to be able to automatically install Lex files and put them in the right folders and stuff. I haven't had a chance to really dig in and do the same thing for Adobe ColdFusion. So it's a little bit harder if you're trying to just like completely script, an installation that has everything you need. You kind of have to start the Command Box server, then run the additional, CFPM things to grab the additional modules you need, which works. It all works. It's just something I have on my event horizon to figure out how I can make that more, seamless. Because like with Lucy, you can use the box.json and you can declare, I need this extension. And then Command Box just kind of gets that for you as part of the start of the server. I'd like to be able to do the same level of integration with Adobe ColdFusion and their stuff, but I need more free time.
Free time? What's free time?
I know. It's all out there to play with. Just know that the process is a little bit different than what you're used to, which is typical. That there's a reason that the download is only 120 megs for ColdFusion 2020. It's because it doesn't have everything out of the box anymore. a lot of stuff turned optional, which I think is a really good change. You just have to realize it's not a kitchen sink anymore. I say kitchen sink, the everything in the kitchen sink phrase. You have to include some of those optional things if you use them in your application.
Yeah, I think having them in the box adjacent would make sense, but it's kind of nice to have auto detection or whatnot. But yeah, that's...
Well, see, because what Lucy gives us is the deploy folder, and you can just drop a Lex file in the deploy folder. Lucy will automatically go, oh, look, an Lex file appeared. I'm watching this directory. Allow me to install it for you. I don't know yet if Adobe ColdFusion has exposed any sort of similar, like directory watcher kind of functionality where you can just like download it yourself and drop it in, and it'll just pick it up and install it. I'm hoping they did, and they don't force you to go through the CFPM. And if for no other reason, the CFPM, which is one of the similar problems Lucy has, a lot of people don't want to have to download something as part of a server warm-up. They don't want to have to depend on some third-party server being online, otherwise they can't, build a Docker container. So it's important for a lot of people to have, these extensions pre-downloaded in some local artifacts folder, and then their Docker build just puts them in the right place. And so that's the workflow. I'm not entirely sure what Adobe supports.
But Charlie did mention that the 2020 Docker image has the feature to pull in the modules declaratively, so you may be able to leverage that. So,
okay, so that's good to hear. I need to take a look at that and see what that is. I don't know if that's code they put in the Docker image, or if the Docker image is just utilizing something that's baked into the core of Adobe ColdFusion.
Yeah, it looks like a good place to start. Depending on if are they public. I know that they're not on Docker Hub. We have to go find the location.
They're on JFrog, actually. They're in Bintray, which is hosted by JFrog that we talked about earlier, who actually went incorporated this month.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, JFrog went incorporated. There's shares now. I'm sure I could probably... Well, actually, I don't know if I can. I'm trying to think if Adobe actually has like the Docker file itself published that builds the images. I haven't looked too closely at them. But yeah, that's what I need to figure out is how they declaratively declare that. No, with Lucy, it's an environment variable you set. Lucy-extensions equals, and it's like a comma delimited list of extensions you want it to install. I'm hoping Adobe ColdFusion has something similar. At least that kind of gives us a point we can tie into, because it is really about automation, like you talked.
Yeah, for sure. Apparently they're only in the pre-release download like the other installers. They're not actually.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Charlie. Adobe's public Docker images are on JFrog, but the 2020 beta images haven't been pushed there yet. So that's a very good point. So to go through the pre-release forum, you'll be able to download it. So good point on that.
Yeah, I'm sure if you write an email nicely, you might be able to get the Docker file. Maybe. There's a download repo command for offline.
Ooh.
So maybe
all
that.
Right. See, I need to research all of this. This is all on my to-do list to figure out what Adobe has and figure out how I can integrate with it.
Yeah, we've also talked about just creating a Adobe wire file that had everything already included, but obviously that would be big, and so yeah. Okay, well, that was a good little sidetrack there, but let's go on to the next one.
I'm making a mental note to bug Charlie later and see if he has like actual documentation links for some of that for me.
Okay, so next up we have a blog from Benedell. He's been on vacation, but he's still busy. So, using Amazon S3 as a temporary storage in Lucy CFML. And so, probably the best thing most people would say about this is like, why don't you just use the S3 object expiration rules, which is amazing, because you can tell, Amazon, anytime I put something in here after so long, delete it. But the problem is that he can't use that, and so this is an experiment into figuring out what he can do if he can't do that. Because basically,
so I saw his tweet on this, and I was curious why he can't use it, but I hadn't read the post yet.
Because his platform team is too busy, and they have such a crazy setup that basically doesn't have time to get that in there without making a mess of everything else. So
wait, what? Okay, so he can use it, but they're just not using it then.
Well, I mean, it would be tricky to do this level of configuration, apparently, in their current setup and whatever, because they've got a pretty big platform with lots of things going on. So
at first I assumed you meant there was some like technical issue or like a bug in Lucy that, made it impossible to use the feature. But it sounds like it's just
organizational
it
more
wouldn't.
than anything.
Yeah, it wouldn't really be easy to use it, so he's looking for another angle.
Yep. So
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. And so basically he was looking at this. Now, funnily enough, George Murphy actually messaged me the other day saying that, did you know that you could write SQL statements in JavaScript against AWS?
Yeah, he was
And you
saying
can
that to me as well.
You can
Well,
actually query the buckets.
it was against JSON files in AWS, wasn't it? In S3?
No, but it was actually giving you back JSON files of responses, but you were actually querying buckets for file lists and stuff. So it was actually a SQL approach to getting data out of AWS for things like what's in your bucket, what's in this folder, etc. So it was really interesting. And
see, I read the link that George had sent me, and I saw that they had kind of a SQL syntax on querying from a JSON file, but I just assumed it was JSON files that you had created and stored in S3. But it sounds like you can stack that on top of probably some of the like built-in JSON APIs that have just kind of metadata about the buckets, and then query on top of that. And so that's actually even more clever than I had originally realized.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So in this one here, Ben is basically, looking at different things with the files and basically the paths to try and figure out placeholders for things. And so he had to do it the brute force way, which is pretty neat. Like I said, it just makes me appreciate even more how cool the lifecycle events are on AWS S3, where if you want to make sure something doesn't live longer than a week or two, and like thinking for backups, you can basically upload all your stuff and you can set different expiration dates that they could be, this backup will expire, every week, but these ones will last for a month, so that way, certain backups live longer, etc. But yeah, so this here works. Looks like it's got a pretty good little system here, but yeah, long story short of it, using the S3 life cycles is pretty cool.
That is cool, though it appears that Ben's using his own S3 client. We need to get him adding whatever he's doing to our actual Ortus S3 SDK.
Yes, interesting. Yeah, because he's got a whole bunch of things in here. Yeah, we will have to have him share it, because I didn't realize that it was his own little client that he had made as a wrapper and using different JAF files.
Part of what he's doing is Lucy specific and wouldn't work on Adobe. But yeah, I hate to see Ben reinventing some of the wheel that I'm pretty certain is probably already in the S3 SDK that's already out there on ForgeBox. It'd be nice to see him just add this functionality to what's already there so everybody can use it.
Yeah, and then that's the thing too with the AWS. You can do stuff with the REST API, or you could use the Java tool as well. There's the Java SDK, which is huge. That's why a lot of people lean towards the REST stuff instead of using Java. I mean,
the thing is, from my understanding, all the Java SDK does is eventually just interact with the REST API at the end of the day. And I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I've always assumed is the case. The S3 SDK that we use with Ortus, I don't even think we originally wrote it. I think we copied it from somewhere to begin with and then built on top of it. It just does its own CFHTP, direct interactions with the REST API. The tricky part was just getting all the signing and stuff working right. But it's very lightweight and doesn't require anything, special to be. I don't think it has any jars it requires. I think it's just a complete standalone CFML implementation. So,
yeah, that's pretty interesting. And James Moberg says he uses a third-party S3 tool too called S3 Express. I used to use S3 CMD. The AWS CLI is pretty neat too. If you want to drop down, there's a lot of interesting things.
I don't think it's incredibly full-featured, but there is also a command for command box, I believe, that does some basic S3 manipulations.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
Yep, and then Charlie said that with CF 2020's use of S3, it has all sorts of things that try and make that easier too. So a lot of options out there for you for sure. But interesting approach, I say, using basically naming all the files a certain way and be able to pass that and folderize them, etc. A lot of things are just building a system. And yeah, I really like the way S3 is, tried to build life cycles, and they got Lambda support for things and makes your life a lot easier. but there's always a way. Well, next up, speaking of John Farrar, apparently he's been busy on other podcasts too. John, thanks.
Cheating on us with other podcasts.
So on the CF Alive podcast, he was talking about open source learning, and so he's had a few things on the Slack channels talking about open source learning and building a new project, and so this one is basically all about that. So it's in my playlist. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm sure it's a great interview there. John's really passionate about learning and sharing his learning abilities, and he really wants to build like a community project to have, a good ColdFusion learning system, learning management system, because like you said, there's a lot of them out there, but they don't all do everything you need. And these days, learning management's a pretty big market, and so it might be one of those tools that could make CFML, noticeable again. So definitely talk to John in the chat or in the Slack channel. He was always happy to talk about that, and check out that podcast.
Back to Ben the Dell.
Yep. So this
I don't think I saw this one. Array pop, array shift, and array slice safe in Lucy.
Yep. So this one here, like myself, when you're doing a lot of stuff in JavaScript, you get used to having functions that don't exist in ColdFusion. I've joked for quite a while about having to create like a library to, basically standardize these types of functions. I'd like to have a ColdFusion one for JavaScript, so I can use all the weird names of ColdFusion arrays and functions. But so this one here basically is, it'd like certain things to exist in Lucy, and so he talks about things like shift and pop member functions that hopefully, ColdFusion would have. I don't know if CF collections that Eric worked on a while back, he had a whole bunch of member functions before member functions were even really built in. He made them so you work with a collection, so you could load, a struct or an array into a collection, and then the collection library had all those extra functions on it, and so it gave you a wrapper. And I think that's pretty similar to what Ben is doing in this one here. And then, that gives you ability.
So what we
to
need Ben to do is to start using the CF collections library and then add his enhancements there, as opposed to making his own library.
Where's the fun of that, Brad?
I know. So I mean, I do like this ideas. Because so array pop and array shift basically is take the first item out of an array or the last item, and you can already do array first and array last in ColdFusion, but that doesn't modify the original array. It just grabs the first item, but it's still in the array. So if you're wanting to interact with an array as sort of a data structure that's being mutated as you pull items out of it, you end up having to do, array first or last to get the item. Then you have to, chop it off the array, or maybe some combination of slice. But I sort of like this one because it, gives you the item back and modifies the array at the same time. What's interesting about the array slice safe is some people were just talking in the CFML Slack the other day about some string functions, I think, in Lucy and possibly Adobe ColdFusion, where you're doing left or right, or maybe it was even then he was talking about it, left or right and mid and stuff like that. And occasionally those functions will be implemented in such a way that if you ask for an index that's technically invalid, as opposed to throwing an error, it will just kind of just ignore it and just say, okay, well, that index is too far. I'm just going to assume you meant only to here. And of course, it's always kind of an argument, should the built-in functions be super rigid and just throw an exception in those cases, or should they, just give you back like the best guess? And so his array slice safe is basically one of those kind of safe ways of doing it. If the index you give it is a little bit too far, it won't blow up on you. So I like these.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's been a few places where I think I wished I had this in ColdFusion for sure, where I had to do a couple lines of code to simulate this one operation.
Yep, exactly. I thought it was pretty neat, and like I say, I definitely like having similarities with switching from JavaScript and and ColdFusion as much as I do. I don't know how many times I've done a .len on JavaScript and vice versa. But anyways.
Well, yeah, several of the places I think I run into this is when I was doing Code Wars katas, and I was taking something I'd solved in JavaScript and solving it in ColdFusion, and I had to use more ColdFusion code because of how it worked.
Yep, for sure. Okay, next up we have a blog from Steve Bryant about pluralizing in ColdFusion. And so he says 10 years ago he used to generically pluralize English language. Basically, if it ends with an S, then it add an ES. If it ends with a Y, he ditch the
Yeah.
Y.
Doesn't
Avoid,
Ruby have a library like that I've heard of before?
pretty much. But basically, he was saying that he was doing it wrong 10 years ago. And so now he basically, uses the pluralizer. And so the pluralizer function does it a little better. And I think Eric has something like this in Quick for, single names and, plural names and everything. So, but yeah, it's just, there's libraries like that out there. If you're working on something, sometimes you can find another tool. So, I don't think pluralizer is in ForgeBox.
It's part of this com.steb tools. We covered that
he
last
talked about,
week
yeah,
with that caching.
One of the other tools he made, I believe. So, yep.
This needs to be on ForgeBox.
If it isn't,
get it on ForgeBox now.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's just one of those things, and if you're dealing with ORM and objects, a lot of times you need singular versions of certain things and plural of other things. And James Moberg is about to share what he uses, so we'll tell you that in a second here too. But while we're wait for that. Okay, he uses.
I don't think your link came through, James.
It's probably blocked. Sorry.
See,
I'll have to tweet about it, and we'll have to share it that way.
Yahoo says denied. You cannot post that link.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yahoo. Or Yahoo.
YouTube,
whatever the heck your name is.
Let's say.
I, for one, embrace our new censoring overlords. There we go. ColdFusion Inflector is the name of it.
On GitHub. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so next up we got jobs. So right now we have Get CFML Jobs just has one new job this week. If we look at their site here, you'll see they have a ColdFusion developer, TS-SCI with Polygraph at Eventually, Virginia.
Wait, you have to pass a polygraph test? Is that what you said?
That's here. It says TS-CSI with Polygraph. So
what does that mean?
Good question. Let's check out.
I was joking, but does that actually mean you have to pass a polygraph test to be hired? You'll bring these qualifications.
You need polygraph clearance.
That's awesome. I want to apply for this just so I can take a polygraph test. I have no intentions of accepting, a job offer. I just want to. I've never taken a polygraph test. I mean, how many times have you seen it in movies?
Yep. You want to see if it works?
Ask me questions. Where were you the night of the 23rd? I don't know. You're not hired.
So yeah, but that job is available on getcfmljobs.com, and yeah, good job there. And Ortus is hiring. I know Brad's been busy with all the applicants for the senior ColdFusion developer position. It's still on the site.
I have an interview with someone in 7 minutes.
Yep. So, basically working with us to help modernize web applications and help people move out of legacy hell, modernization. Basically, the big musts is the U.S. time zone availability is a must, and the U.S. citizen or resident or work visa is a must. So if you are interested in that, we have ortusolutions.com/about-us/careers.
Sweet.
So if you guys are interested. Okay, let's move on to ForgeBox Module of the Week. This one is Dupify by Michael Bourne. So this is a fun little one, and he did warn me that he's not sure how well it works yet. But it's a little
That's the best kind.
command box module to generate many copies of a file. So if you need a test and you need to have a whole bunch of PDFs or JPEGs or something that needs to be basically run this installation, and then you can say once you install Dupify to the system, then you can actually duplicate a file so many times. And so you can say, okay, I want to take this file, I want 3 versions of this PDF, save it to this folder. I want 4 pictures of 4 of this profile picture, save it there. And
so how does it name them? I don't see that anywhere in the README. Maybe just appends a number on the end of it.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like I could have actually used this in the past when I want to just put 1,000 test files into a folder, and I have to write a quick little task runner with a loop and a file write kind of nonsense. This would be kind of cool.
Yep, and so it just makes.
I'm guessing
copies.
you have to provide it with one file for it to copy. It can't just create a JPEG all on its own.
Yeah, so here's dupify 300 of this file, and then it does it in the same folder unless you give it the folder that you want to spit it out to.
Okay, so you give it kind of the base file, and then it takes it and cranks it out.
Yep, nice little command box module for that, so you can prep something and looping over a file or so many times. Pretty interesting. So
now, does it have a command that goes back and deletes them all for you when it's done?
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Obviously, it's command box. I was wondering if you could throw that into actually like a ColdBox module. Then your test suite, your test harness could actually generate them, do something with them, and then delete them when it's done.
Oh yeah, just like kind of like a service layer.
Yeah, a little cleanup inside your test, because that is a command box command, but pretty cool. And again, obviously, he was writing some tests, needed to loop through something for his test to be valid. So that's what he built, and he shared it with everybody. Right. So cool. Thank you. Next up, we have a VS Code hint, tip, trick of the week. This one is pretty. I'll say that much. So for those of you who are listening, sorry, but you don't get to see how pretty this is. So actually, I will blow it up a little bit more.
Oh, wow, it's so beautiful.
But this is a visual debugger for VS Code. So as you actually have an array and things move and get replaced, or if you have something which has appendices, you have all these different visualization functions. So so as your code
does it only work for what languages does it work for?
Well, if I scroll down a little more, you'll see it's got full support for JavaScript and TypeScript, but it has some support for Go, Python, CodeCLR, PHP, Java, I don't even know, Swift, C++, Rust.
I'm guessing these languages all need to have an actual debugger written for VS Code.
Yeah, so most of them are using a certain debugger that's already in there.
Yeah, they all say using XYZ debug adapter.
Yeah, and so it builds on top of the adapter, ties into the information from it. But I just think it's pretty cool how you see this array actually reorganized in front of you. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I like the visualization. So basically, we wouldn't be able to get ColdFusion support until such a time that somebody actually wrote a ColdFusion debugger.
Yeah, but with all the times we do stuff in JavaScript, this might be useful for that too. So there's a little playground you can go look at and see all the different visualizations, and then basically inside the debugger, you just choose the visualization you want, and away you go. It's got little graphs and charts and all sorts of cool stuff. So pretty neat. So if you're debugging something, maybe visualizing will help. So thought that was pretty cool. And Scott Steinbeck submitted that one, so thank you, Scott.
All right, let's finish this thing up. I have to interview someone in 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'll read it real quick. But thank you to all our Patreon supporters. If you want to support us on Patreon, you go to patreon.com/ortussolutions, and the money goes to first supporting our podcast, but then also we'll support things like Command Box, ForgeBox, ColdBox, Content Box, TestBox, and all the other box products out there. Okay, so thank you. Ben Adele, Brett DeLine, Kyle Van Staten, Charlie Earhart, Dali, Dan Carr, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Didier Lesnicki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, Jan Yannick, Jason Diger, Jeff McLean, Jeremy Adams, Joseph Erickson, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamory, Kai Koenig, Laxmar Tirohadi, Mario Rodriguez, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Ryan Hughes, Scott Steinbeck, Sean Oden, Stephen Klotz, Synaptrix, and Yogesh Mither. All of these are listed on our ortussolutions.com/about-us/sponsors, and more information about how you can support us too. And we thank each and every one of you for making this possible, because without it, it would be a hard thing to do. So thank you, everybody. And Brad can go do his interview now, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Peace out, everybody.
Have a good one. Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.